So welcome back to another episode of Final Cut, and we very rarely do this, but we fetched a guest back on ours on season 1 to get an update from this guy who's really campaigning hard. He's got lots of things to say about the industry and how it is at the minute and what shape it's in, and let's hear all from him and what his last endeavours have been. So welcome back to Final Cut, Mr. Toby Dicker.
Thanks very much for having me. I didn't know I was in exalted company. So yeah, thanks for inviting me.
We're all nice and relaxed here. Got TV. Just waiting for his favourite programmes to come on, but they've not.
Since Toby was on, he has now got a bit of a reputation.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful with him because perception about the mild-mannered Mr. Dicker has changed somewhat, which he can explain to us.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm extremely passionate about the things we've been doing. I think if you're referring to the sort of VAT campaign, we made a lot of noise and we brought a lot of more understanding to the debate around tax across the whole industry. It wasn't just about VAT. The way we looked at it was that VAT was the simplest tool for balancing the industry, leveling things out for those people who pay VAT in the industry, and it's a broader conversation around tax really, because it's so imbalanced that I fear that if we don't all come together as an industry to discuss this, and I mean everybody, every voice, everything, then we are going to see huge parts of the industry die out, and that is particularly salon owners and particularly those people that train, because they tend to be, or they nearly always, VAT paying, PAYE paying businesses. Not every single one. There are some, one person operations who bring in an apprentice, and I admire those people hugely. But the imbalance is huge. And I think one of the things that's completely misunderstood is that I'm campaigning for the whole industry really, because the individuals within it who choose to work in a salon, if they're turning over £80,000 for that salon, 15 grand of that immediately goes out in VAT. Whereas next door at a different type of business, a different type of establishment, or on their own, the individual doesn't pay any VAT at all. And I think just a balancing of the tax system is what we need. And we need the whole industry to come together. We've tried very, very hard. The Fellowship have joined us, Hair and Barber Council, MH Fed and the Freelance Hairdressers, Freelance Hairdressers Association have all come together because they understand it's a wider problem. It's not a them against us. Other organisations have different things to say, but again, unless we all sit in a room, unless we all come together, unless some of the other voices come forward, then we're just going to have a shell of an industry that is not respected. And I think that is the problem. This industry's never been properly respected, and I'm really, really passionate about the amazing people in it, and to be for such a divisive issue is what I'm passionate about, and I'm just sad
it's fragmented at the minute.
I think we've done an amazing job of bringing 5 organisations together. The estimation is that we represent about 50,000 individuals who actually work in this industry. Other organisations have different memberships and so on, but I think we're the single biggest. But yeah, there's people out there that hate everything we do and what we say because they don't understand it. And I would invite everybody in. As an industry, we can't just be a creative industry that is all about just that. We need to create a platform to build great creativity that is based on but it is based on really strong foundations, like you say, build better businesses, not because we need to all more money, but because it's what pays for that creativity and growth in the future. And genuinely, my rallying call would be everybody in this industry needs to come to one big thing and understand each other. The world is so divided right now in every which way you look, because of the way we consume our media and so on, that unless we just, as a bunch of human beings, sit there and look into this, we're not going to change anything. So yes.
So we've got a magic lamp. Rub it. What do you want? What would be your ideal scenario to get everybody together?
From a specific perspective of Salon Employers Association, it would be a levelling of the tax playing field through a system like Ireland, but I know that's not a
Just
one size.
explain to our viewers, though, for people who don't understand what's happening, just explain what you mean by that, what happens in Ireland with different businesses and
What
different
happens in
tax.
Ireland and all over Europe is that a sales tax, such as VAT for us, comes in at a much lower level. Now, that is going to be punitive for some people in this industry, and that's why we need a wider conversation about whether that's a good or a bad thing. But as an employer, and what it's meant in Ireland is a huge growth in the industry and less of a black market and being taken much more seriously by government. But what it also means is a much lower cost of VAT. So the barrier to entry is much lower. It's been at 9% for a long time. It's currently 13.5%. But there's a big disparity. It's 23% for goods, 13.5% for services in hairdressing specifically. And it means that there's no great fear of going over that. Everyone's able to grow their business and do the best they can and provide for the future and train people and do all those things. Now, I know that's going to upset some freelancers, and that's why we need them in the room. That's why we need the conversation. That's why we need everybody to come together, because if we don't balance it out, it will be working 3 days a week in a supermarket and doing hairdressing, in some places at the weekend or whatever. And I don't want that. Now, there's some brilliant freelancers, there's some brilliant creative people, there's some great businesses out there. But if it's this imbalanced, then I very much fear for the future. And that's all. It's just, at the end of the day, I'm not the be all and end all. I don't know everything. And therefore, everyone needs to come together. That's what needs to happen now.
What would you want, though? Tell me. I think it's important that we don't, for people who are like, well, who's he mean?
Initially, I genuinely mean a big open forum where anyone who chooses to join and have their say and understand the arguments properly comes together. We've created another organisation to bring the industry together, the British Hairdressing Consortium, and the idea is that anyone that has a worthwhile voice and wants to grow the future of this industry should be part of that, and anyone who isn't part of it should have a good long hard look at themselves and say, why can't I come together for the betterment of the industry? And that's it. I can't say everything I say is right, and there's lots of people that disagree with me, and that's fine. But healthy debate is what we need. That's what we need. We've avoided this subject for so long that we have a massively divided industry and a lot of very angry people, and I don't want that.
Do you think people, I don't know, this is for all of us really, do you think sometimes people shy away from the negotiations and confrontations because of their own personal agenda or their own personal businesses?
I don't like to comment, but I think people, I'm for the betterment of the industry, and I think other organisations and other people, everyone has vested interests, but this is the time to put the egos aside, sit down, agree the way forward, so we have a united representation with government who don't have a clue what is going on in our industry, and continue to make decisions that actually make things worse for people. I don't know a salon owner who runs PAYE and VAT scheme in the country who is enjoying themselves at the moment, and that's a really sad thing in a brilliant creative industry. I want my team and the teams of those people to get paid what they deserve and have the respect they deserve. Well, that's not too much to ask, I don't think.
Do you think, you look at the VAT campaign that you orchestrated, do you think that has taken us a further step forward towards having an industry that is truly together? Or do you take that as being a strong positive from that? And on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being totally fragmented, 10 being totally conjoined, and 1 true voice and really together, where would you say we are on that scale just now?
I'd say we were probably at a 4 before that, and I think the opportunity now is that we're at a 5 or 6 or a 7.
To build upon that.
It's the only good thing that's come from the campaign. It's been exhausting. It's amazing to have the support of everybody, and that is what's made it a positive. The fact that we have an opportunity now to do something off the back of this because people are actually interested in the subject. That's the important part.
Do you think enough salon owners, barbershop owners, people in hair and beauty in general in the UK, do you think enough of them took the pandemic and everything that happened to this industry in particular, do you think they took that seriously enough, or do you think they recognised that was such a wake-up call for this industry? or do you think there's still a lot more education required in that sense?
I think we can achieve great things together. I think there's an awful lot of people that go into business that don't understand the first thing about it. And I think having growth in that area and some real understanding before people open the doors, and a playing field that is easy for people to understand would make a massive difference. But I think there's a huge amount to do in the education of that. I love the creative in this industry. I love the people in it. I love what we give and do for people in this industry. But I think there's a long way to go from a business education point of view. And I think the only way is together. I think that about my life. I think that about the song that you played when I came in the door. At the end of the day, if we continue to fight and argue and go against one another, we'll just be seen as idiots and we won't be taken seriously. And honestly believe, and I'm going to go out to academics and ask this question, I honestly believe we're the most taxed industry on the high street. And if we all came together, we'd probably all end up paying less and earning what we deserve and having a much more cohesive future. And that's where
Sounds good, so doesn't it?
It does sound, when you put it simply like that, I think it's a no-brainer. But do you feel that there's a disconnect that we have to overcome, in that a lot of people, particularly in this sector, look at politicians and they think it's us and them? They're not on the same playing field. They don't understand us. We'll never understand them. Or you look at the antics of, not just in the last 5 years, but I look at my lifetime, 36 years of politics, where the antics of politicians, their behaviours, the way they go about their business, the way the different regimes come in and go. And do you think people just look at it in this industry and think, they'll never understand, they'll never listen, I feel so disconnected to it, and that's actually a turn-off to getting involved in these sort of scenarios?
I totally get all of those things, but that's happening. That's a wider question of society, in my opinion. I think society is completely disconnected. I think having a private Facebook social group and echoing, anger and angst among that, rather than having an open forum and debate, is what causes discord in our industry, but outside. And we've always been leaders. We've always been a really forward-thinking industry, accepting, embracing difference and change and all the rest of it. So why can't we be the message? Why can't we be taken seriously? Why can't we be written about in the Times and the Telegraph and be taken seriously by those things? That's what I want. Just because you didn't get the most GCSEs doesn't mean you're not brilliant and you're not a great business person and you shouldn't be respected. I'm fortuitous in respect to the fact that I'm not in the industry, but I love the industry. So I'm not a hairdresser, but that's what I want. I want us to be taken really, really seriously, and that's it. So come and talk to me. I might be wrong. My mind might be changed, but without debate and without an effort, then we'll do nothing. We'll just keep trying to get one over on each other, and that is sad. But that is politically, I'm feeling that very much at the moment as well. I totally agree. There's division everywhere. At the end of the day, sit in a room, realise that we're all human beings and we all have similar woes and similar problems and similar ideas in life, and then you might start to understand each other. Sit the other side of a screen, say you're an arsehole, you're a dickhead, your idea's a bad idea, then you'll get nowhere. So you have to try, and that's a bit off message in terms of politically, but that's exactly how I feel about the world right now.
You mentioned the society, and I think you've said, look at this industry as a microcosm of wider societal issues and the disconnect with politicians. But the thing for me that I find interesting, I asked you that question about where on the scale are we just now in terms of being cohesive as an industry. And I think you gave it a 5 or a 6. Did you go as far as a 6?
I gave it a 4 initially, and I said we've got the opportunity of being a 7 now because we've got so much momentum. But if we don't carry on, it will just slip back to a 4 or 3 or whatever.
So say we're hovering around 5 or 6 just now, just for argument's sake, on the back of that campaign and that cohesiveness or that starting point of that. If there was, and God forbid, but if there was a pandemic tomorrow, do you think the hair and beauty industry in the UK would be better prepared, or do you think it would still be calamitous in terms of the response, in terms of what to do? Obviously, a lot of it's down to government, but do you think the industry would be better prepared coming out of that?
No, I don't think we would, unfortunately. I think that's a sad.
And why is that the case, do you think?
Because there's still too many different voices. It's taken us 3 years to even get our voice listened to, and to bring the 5 people into the room and to be taken in any way seriously. We get told now we understand the issue, but we can't do anything about it. That's progress. In 2 years' time, they might understand the issue and realise they've got to do something about it. And you know, I genuinely cannot see an industry that wouldn't be bettered by ultra rich companies paying a lot more tax. Now that's very political, but I think the big tax avoiding companies from the US and all the rest of it, or people that deliberately offshore their money, we should find a way to tax them. We're the government after all, and a balancing across the board by looking at all industry to bring fairness across the board, because that's why people tend to fight. But we're not ready right now because it takes so much effort and so much time to even move the dial a tiny way. And we've moved the dial to the point in which they now understand us, and that we can actually argue effectively when we think there's an untruth been said. So that's a movement, but it's exhausting.
It's taken a lot of time to get to this point.
And if we all came together and we all stood up, we all created video assets, and we all said, actually, this is wrong, and we all campaigned locally to let our MPs understand it and had a proper debate and a proper argument and said, this is who we are, we could change it a lot faster.
So for viewers that's watching, just a stylist watching or a barber watching, how can they get involved? What would your advice be if they're resonating with them? Like, what do I do?
Find one of those organisations, find anyone that fits you, and reach out to them and say, and then watch this space when the British Hairdressing Consortium comes together, creates bigger programs, bigger events where we invite, I don't know, people onto a live and able to ask questions, have a proper debate, but do that with respect to one another. Do that without slagging people off. Get involved and go, hold on, do I understand your point of view, or I'm just going to slag it off? Because it's really, really, really easy to drag people down and slag things off.
Final
it's
cut,
much harder.
Season 3, all 5 industries together. See if we can get them around the table.
Yeah, and others.
Yeah, I think that would be. Now, not only, because I think it'd be unfair to do this to you, right? Not only do you go all this campaigning and it's all like you're battling, you run a very successful chain of salons as well. I remember being at Fellowship Awards years ago. I think you won Salons of the Salon Group of the Year a few times. Which is the Chapel.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the Chapel. We'll line it up a little bit for you. It's very important what you've just said, but I don't want people just looking at you. That's all you do. You run a successful chain of salons as well. Tell us a little bit about the Chapel.
We started 26 years ago, and I did that with my at the time girlfriend, and she became my wife, Amanda. And we had this conceptual idea about how we could bring a difference to hairdressing, a difference in being a really super consumer focused approach. So customer service led, what we call our guests, as we developed it over a period of time. So welcoming people into the salon, making them feel great across all touch points. We saw our competitors probably more as restaurants, hotels, places where people would go out and spend a day to feel good about themselves. It wasn't just about the haircut. The haircut's really, really important. Skills are number one. It's got to be the biggest reason why you do, but we wanted to differentiate ourselves. And that started out in an old butcher's shop. And then in 2001, a local chapel came up for auction. And a friend of mine said to me, wrote me a check for the deposit. And he said, go buy it. And I said, right, well, the maximum we can pay is $485. And Amanda went and bid, and her first bid was $475. Someone bid $480, and they went $485, and we got it. And that was how the chapel came about. So and also at the same time, we were really looking at it. One of the things we looked at every day, I was trying to do some forward forecasting, trying to understand the business, trying to understand what it was. And I said, what's half-head highlights? And someone said to me, well, it's this, this, and this, and this. And someone else said, no, it's that, and that. And in the end, I went, this is way too confusing. And the amount of times I saw a stylist sell themselves down by saying, I've only done a partial today, you know, and reducing, you know, what they brought to the party. So I looked at that at the same time and I said, there's a solution for this, like these 2-mile long price lists, and that is to value each person's time. And so we started selling services by time at the same time, and that's been something that's been since 2000. We started in 96, moved into the chapel in 2001.
That
And
was revolutionary at the time, wasn't it?
I think we were the first to do it, yeah. And I think we were the first to call people guests as well, and look at it in
Not
that way.
clients.
And it's become a debate. But for us, the idea is that we treat people as guests into our home. As you've welcomed me in today, you know, that's the thought process behind it. And so the guys would be, instead of increasing prices over a period of time or becoming senior this, that, and the other, and titles, we had stylists, and they were just different levels. And then we based their progression from a £50 stylist to a 60 to a 70 on what we call our sat nav. So we sit and we agree a certain set of standards you've got to have and skills, a certain amount of customer retention. So focus an awful lot on that data. Now I use data a lot in the business, but it's as a measure of the outcomes of the other things that you do. It's never the goal. It's the goal, not it's the outcome of doing things well. So we focused on that, and once you'd hit a certain amount of retention, we knew that you could take that price list, and even if you lost 5 or 10% of your customers, you'd still turn over the same money, and then you'd create growth and progression like that. And then over the years, we've just added different salons to it, and it's been an interesting journey. We've got 5 places now that are in relatively unique buildings: schoolhouse, pubs, and 3 chapels cum churches. Big open spaces. An awful lot of our space is dedicated to conversation. So like this, having a conversation with people where you focus on that initial relationship building, 15 minutes of just chat. And it's been an interesting journey all round. And yes, it's created its own success. And we've grown and learned a lot along the way, and also made tons and tons of very expensive mistakes. And what we're particularly focused on right now is that retention piece and reducing those last-minute cancellations as a business, because we get around 10% a week at the moment of last-minute cancellations and no-shows, and it's a specific focus on that, because you can turn a business from breaking even to great profit just by focusing on simple things and doing them really, really, really well. So, that's where we are. It's a very short précis of the journey.
We've got an episode coming up which I want everybody to tune in. Don't forget to tune in to the Forest and the Vish debate that we have, which is 2 software companies that come in and help to give you management systems for your business. And when I was speaking to these guys as well, it's like I had it really early days when I worked at Dimensions. I think it was called Microstyle at that point, one of the earliest ones that came in, but just brilliant how it did everything, the management side of it. So you know, click a button and tell you what you did this time last year, your productivity. Stylists say, I've been busy all week, and then you look at it, you say, actually, you've only actually worked on shop floor like 21 hours.
That's interesting you say that. I mean, both those companies I use, by the way, Forest, because they're really, really open, very extremely helpful when it comes to getting data and so on.
Look, I love that.
And Vish, yes, he will. And Vish, also, I've worked with Tom for a long time, and I've turned that all into data and pictures through a company that I formed called Visiologic. So we create pictures.
Is this your new
It's,
venture?
Yeah. It's
Tell us a little bit about that then. I'm intrigued about this one. You dropped it on me at last minute, but
No, I mean, Visiologic, the idea was it was visualizing information architecture in a logical way. So everything we've ever done from a reporting perspective has been about turning big amounts of data into meaningful images, because this industry is very visual, and creating meaningful change. So I can tell you, we're the only ones that do it with Vish right now, but we get their data out on a monthly basis, and we've worked out how to decode what each one is. And I over since 2021, I spend the retail price, I save £3 per customer on colour. by using that and using the data and showing my team exactly what it means and focusing on that and making sure they use things properly. There's no point in taking anything on unless you're going to do it properly. So take one thing on at a time, do it to the best of your ability, and then focus on the next thing and do that. So
Do you think it's an age thing though as well? Because me and him speak a lot, lots of things about business, but then we'll speak a lot about, we moan about things. For instance, my partner yesterday, she was trying to get her nails done, and she phoned 6 nail bars, and none of them answered telephone. And you know what he does on his side?
Yeah.
And it will like that, where you can find out whether, called yesterday, how many calls you missed. And we talk about Wi-Fi, don't we? About when you're going to a business, and the Wi-Fi is really poor because it's a 25 quid a month package.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think businesses get, especially in our sector, they don't get that side of it.
I think Forest is an incredibly good place to start if you want the online booking, if you want those different bits and pieces. But I want to make that with other technology. I've been using Mutu for 15 years, a long time.
Like
So
yeah.
voice over IP, it's called. It means that you can basically have your phone anywhere on any device. So my guys sit at home on a laptop. They plug their headset in. They've got a booking system. They've got the WhatsApp. They've got everything all in one place, and that sort of seamless transition is what you need, and being able to know who's called you and who's not. And we're working on a project with Barry that when someone calls in, it pops the screen open on Forest and shows you exactly who's calling and when the next booking is. Just little time-saving things that make you seem like a slicker process. And it started out with just reporting, so showing great reporting. The most important number for me was retention. So I spent 2 days a month manually putting in the percentage retention for each period of time. And now we look at that over a 3, 6, 9, 12-month period. Then I can start to focus on who's lapsing, which customers are lapsing, when are they likely to lapse, if they've got a forward booking. I can automate all of that. And now I have someone that picks that up and calls all of those customers. And once they've called those customers, they then go into a marketing flow, and we send out specific emails and messaging to do
It's called
that.
a proper business, though, isn't it?
Well, I have to keep trying because the margin in this business is tough. That's why I campaign on these different things. We are not respected as an industry, and that's why you do it. Yeah, it's a proper business, but it's still really tough. I empathise with any salon owner out there.
The other thing as well, I think there's certain parts of that you won't promote as a salon or as a barber shop to say, we do all these business, because I think you should just be told by your guests or your clients. But one thing I always think is like the Wi-Fi side of it. He knows a story about my favourite little place in Spain, and there's 3 coffee bars, and I go to the same one every morning to do my work.
Because the Wi-Fi's good.
Exactly. People say to me, should we try next door? Same food, same prices, same everything, just a bit of a different theme. I can't, because the Wi-Fi's that good in Parador that I'm just have to stay here, because you go to other 2 and it's dropping in and out. You're trying to do emails or you're on a Zoom call. It just happens. So, I get it massively.
My thing about technology is actually it shouldn't be invasive at all. It shouldn't even be on show. It should make the human experience better.
Yeah.
We are selling human interactions in a way that are really meaningful for people. That's the way I see it. And that's what hairdressers are. So that's the magic that hairdressers do. Hairdressers don't cut hair.
You know, if a client's coming in, let's say she's having a 2.5 hour service, 3 hour service. Am I wrong then in saying that she wants to come in and maybe get a laptop out and do a bit of work, or does she want to relax?
You're not wrong at all. It's just that everyone's different. You go to that because it's important for the Wi-Fi. Someone might go next door because it means no one's on their phone. We're all different.
Yeah.
And so therefore we've got to create that for everybody. We've got a workspace for some people. We've got a chill out space for others. We've got whatever it might be. So invest in those things. But I think technology should be seamless and not difficult.
I think
and that's where it is.
buzzword is frictionless. Where everyone's heading towards.
Yeah. And that's why the next thing we're doing, and I'm really excited about this, but I'll launch it this week, is the first WhatsApp integration in the industry. So we've built our own WhatsApp platform. We send all our marketing messages out, we send our reminder messages out. We can do marketing as well. And it's literally just starting this week. So fingers crossed, because it's so conversational. what text now, people are just like, it's a text. They hardly see them, and so I want to do that. It's much more conversational. Platform means it filters all the messaging, and then you can start to build in things like remind someone a week before, but say, oh, you must put your card. Our new process might be you need to put your card details in to guarantee your appointment. And if they guarantee their appointment, they've confirmed it, and it automatically syncs back to the software, which is what we're aiming for, then they've committed to that appointment in a way that hairdressing is the easiest thing to say, I'll cancel that at the moment. And we need to be, no, hold on a minute, respect us in the same way as you respect the dentist and the doctor and everybody else. Yeah. Because we are serious, right? And we need that. And our people need the income. We need to be respected is what I'm saying.
It's not a crime, and is it, to say we want to secure our future. On the WhatsApp, though, I wonder if you could sit down with the Evo Media group, because I'm in a lot of WhatsApp groups with these, and they send me stupid photographs so late on a night. it's nonsense, the stuff I get through. Different photograph.
Well, weirdly, we've taken, WhatsApp from a consumer point of view is a great thing because everyone's got it.
Yeah.
The longer term plan is to build a last minute cancellations piece. So people sign up for cancellations, and rather than have to have an app that you got to download or this or that for each salon, everyone's got WhatsApp. So you sign up and say, like a haircut with Scott on Saturday, he hasn't got anything. Someone cancels, 15 minutes later, WhatsApp gets sent to everyone that wants it. First one first served. They pay a deposit. Done. And so those things should be really improving the consumer experience, and i.e. better customer service, but be frictionless, like Barry said, and make salons more and get them more respected, because this would drastically change the outlook for the industry as well. And that's the drive. It's got to work for me first. I want it to work. I'm going to test it in that environment. And then I'm going to test how to get the re-engagement piece going. And then they're the things that excite me about technology. And as I said, it's got to return more than it costs you. It's got to be easy to use, and it's got to improve customer service.
It's got to be providing a solution.
Yeah.
And easy to use bit is the main thing. I think when it gets too complicated, the other two go out the window.
Yeah, and when you automate that and you can build responses in and so on, or you can have the app on your phone, which is just out there, and you can keep a visual of that. You don't need 10 different things. You need to bring things together. What I call with Visiologic, it's about providing the data, showing you where you're at right now on retention, and showing you where you can go, and reducing costs when it comes to something like Vish, or making sure you know exactly who you're calling back and how many you've missed and what that might have cost you, so that you know what's the one thing I need to focus on. That's what I said earlier on. Do one thing really, really well. I had a saying that I've always said, which is do it well or don't do it at all. And that's got to be the mantra in business. And right now, when it's as tough as it is, and I'll put my hands up and say it's the toughest it's ever been, you need to stop and think.
Available bit of ammunition.
Yeah, you need
every 1% adds up to
everything.
Yeah, the little bits all that add up. Oh, you're not an hairdresser, so you're doing it from the business side and love your partner's an hairdresser.
No, not anymore. We're still in business together, and we still get on really, really well. But we're not married anymore. But
I like to dig into family stuff.
We have a size 10s.
In you get
business.
There you go. Cut. Who's your biggest inspiration though in terms of business? Who inspires you? Is it somebody in the industry? Is it out of the industry? Or would you look at one person you think, I've read it or her or his books, and it's somebody who inspires you?
There's a couple of things that I really like at the moment. I love the Diary of a CEO podcast. I don't like everything that comes up with it, but I love to dip in and out of that.
Stephen Bartlett one.
Yeah,
it's
very
fantastic.
easy to consume some of that stuff. From a business mentoring type perspective, I would look at someone like Dave Brailsford, funnily enough, from the British cycling team.
He's just at Manchester United now.
Yes, he's just gone to Manchester United. And he was the 1%. He went out with Team Sky and the British cycling team when we were rubbish at everything. And he turned up at the Tour de France and said, I'm going to win the Tour de France with a British rider within 5 years. And they laughed in his face. And 2 years later, he won it. And what he did was make those 1% gains that you talked about. And it's
Yeah.
really interesting you just brought that up. So he did things like he helicoptered his people off the top of the mountain at the end of the stage to get them in bed earlier, because he knew that rest was the most important thing. He had lessons on how to wash your hands to all the riders before they ate, so they didn't pick up any bugs. He had a team, 2 teams, going from one hotel to the next. So he'd have a truck full of all the guys' bedding, mattresses, pillows, everything like that. And he'd drive and he'd put those in that hotel, and the next one would pick it up and go to the next one. The temperature of the room was the same, etc., etc. So it's those 1% where you make the difference.
Do you know, Dave Brailsford was in the back of my mind, actually, just when I was listening to what you were saying about the small efficiencies that add up to the bigger picture. And you mentioned about margins, because again, in business, it comes down to things like margins. What fascinates me, though, is, and I was going to follow on from Simon's question, was not necessarily individuals, but like with Brailsford, someone from a different industry. Because I often think that, you know, not every industry is perfect, but a lot of industries do really well at certain aspects.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you've been saying, I keep going back to an example in a previous life. I used to be a lobbyist. I used to work with a client that was a haulage company.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We can talk in the
We've
rounds
had
about
that
that.
conversation.
It was a haulage company, and it was so fascinating to me. Their margins were like less than 1%. And I always thought to myself, this is absolutely crazy. Like, it doesn't take much and it could just go all to pot. And I found it fascinating. Just, they basically moved their facility half a mile closer to the motorway because they couldn't charge until they were on the motorway. But the political upheaval, what they had to do, it was 2 different constituencies right on the border. So they had to get the backing of the local council here, the local council there, the MP, the MSP, etc., etc. But I often go back to that and think in business, these small things do add up. So other than cycling, because I know that's a hobby of yours, is there another industry or sector that you look at religiously and you think, right, I'm going to give this a go, I'm going to adapt this to hair and beauty, and I'm going to use the chapel as the guinea pig, if you like, and I'm going to say, right, how can we do this? How can we implement this efficiency to make our industry better?
I think the industry is relatively unique, actually, and I think so few people understand it that unless you're embedded in it and having done it and run a salon and been in a salon, that it's actually very difficult to do that. So I think those examples are really, really good, and I'm inspired by your conversation. Right now, most of the industry who are running businesses that are PAYE, VAT registered, most of the businesses are run as lifestyle businesses. They're making 1% let. They really are. And I think the thing to go is, right, if I can save, this is a good example, but if I can save £3 a bowl and I'm making 1% net, that's 300 quid I've not got to turn over. That's £300.
People
Right.
look at it opposite way.
That's
way
insane.
around.
I've just saved 3 quid. Oh, I've got to turn over more, got to turn over more, got to turn over more. Hold on a minute, just stop and think. And, you know, when you're making less than 1% net, you save 1% in costs or whatever it might be, you double your profit.
This is it.
That's it. And these are the things that we don't understand as an industry, but percentages. So if you make from 1 to 2% profit, suddenly you're in there. Our industry should and could make 5% net profit, but we don't because, one, we undervalue ourselves.
Absolutely.
And don't sell things for where we are. 2, we're constantly thinking there's more customers out there, and therefore we run sales campaigns and discounts and so on and so on, and there aren't. Customers come less frequently now. When you measure that, you know that, and then you go, I'm not going to discount. I'd rather have 60% of the business than 100% of the business at 50% of the price. You're still doing better off.
Yeah.
You're not using the colour. You're not using the space and time and all the rest of it. And we just need to have open conversations about that. I think it starts with us all coming together. I think it starts with us sharing knowledge like we always used to in this industry and making it fun. I think it starts with us not being divided. As a business, refuse to do social media. It's just not in our remit because we feel it's a divisive thing. Do things in the community, bring people in and have a bigger discussion because there's something in it for all of us. And there should be something in it for all of us. And we should get back to what I saw in the late 90s, early 2000s, an industry that was exciting, that let young people come in, that was accessible, that was a proper career. And I just feel that
It's lost its way.
It's lost its way, and we can change that, but only if we all want it to
together.
change and do that. But yeah, I love the questions. But yeah, I think that's the main one for me. Make those little changes, and also give yourself the time to do it, because we're all so busy going, shit, I've got to do this, running about doing twice as much for half the money, that we don't stop and just think. And I think that's another valuable lesson.
We're on one of the previous episodes listening to Adam Reed when he said he were doing things years ago that he didn't realise that had helped him to where he is today in terms of what he did. I didn't know Dave Brailsford had done that. You just thought he was just a fantastic motivational person who had got some techniques better. I didn't know that it was those little things. And I'm just as you're saying it and you were just talking now, I was just thinking, you've both been backstage in my areas when we have the big exhibitions and stuff, and the level of detail that we as a company go to looking after our presenters, that they don't have to worry about going off for dinners at an exhibition or queuing up for waters. We have fridges backstage, there's prep, there's energy bars, it's the right food, it's their hotels are all booked and paid for, travels arrangements, things that they don't have to worry about the last minute, the timings of hotels. People are getting early check-ins, so they're not waiting until 2 o'clock. If they're there at 12, we've got early check-ins. And I didn't know he'd done that, but
you must be much more hopeful for United now.
Much more hopeful for United. I think they're getting a new CEO as well, the guy from Newcastle, I think.
Ashworth.
Yeah. I think he's going back. So yeah, it's exciting times, isn't it? Barry, you've got browner this episode. Yeah, I don't know if it's the lights, but you've got a fantastic tan happening. Can I sit in Barry's chair for next?
I think it's a liver problem,
next
to be
week?
honest.
Can I ask Toby a final question, because I'm truly fascinated. As someone who's also not a hairdresser, has a business background, an entrepreneurial spirit. I mentioned the lobbying side of it, so I come at this in a totally different perspective to so many folk, and I know you do too. Do you think the biggest challenge that you face as an individual, as an entrepreneur, as someone that looks at data, as someone that properly analyses the whole industry, do you think the biggest challenge is making that sexy to these creative people, that the last thing they want to think about are numbers, figures, tax, VAT, you name it, XYZ, PAYE? They do not want to, that isn't going to float their boat. So is that the biggest challenge you face? How do you make it sexy? Is it £1,000? That's what you could be saving each month. Like, what is the biggest challenge there, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I absolutely do think that's exactly how it is. It's making it, it's not even making it sexy, it's making it accessible, it's making it a simple message. It's a bit like us calling for a 10% cut in VAT. That was going to solve a problem for a short space of time while we had a wider conversation. But I do agree that the worst or the most challenging part in the business right now, or in the industry, is just getting people to understand what you're talking about. So making things accessible, I think, is the most important thing, and making sure that you take the time to tell the story, particularly in your own business. And that's an area in which I know we need to upskill and improve on, and finding a way to make sure that everyone in your business understands the why. Because at the end of the day, none of this matters. No technology, nothing will solve your problems unless you have good people relationships. And it's as simple as that. If you can't coach, and you can't talk to people on a level, and you can't dedicate the time to do so, none of this will work.
You're never going to get the best out of people unless you can communicate. Toby, again, brilliant to have you on. I'm glad we've talked about something a little bit different than just your campaigning. But I mean, I think, again, the strong message is that I think Toby's wish is to get everybody together, to try to pull together. But I think you might have just got your latest recruit as a lobbyist. He should be in our team there, doing what he's spent all these years at university doing. I think all of us who have got businesses, who have got salons as well, they need to take a good look at themselves and see where they, how it's going to affect their lives, how it affects their day-to-day stuff, by not just sitting back and say, oh yeah, we know he's doing it. We know he's going on there. We know Colette works with you. We know that you're going off and doing it. But then do they know? And now they're getting involved. And it's kind of like, like you said, get to one of these organisations, speak to them about the concerns and see what they can do by their voice, gathering momentum. And, you know, we wish you really well on Final Cut. We hope that we can continue to help you. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. There's things to be excited about, but unless we come together, unless we work this through, business owners are going to be so fraught and stressed and unable then to take anything new on. I think that's why the fight is so important. If you get the opportunity to stop worrying for a second and just take a deep breath and go, right, I'm going to stop and do something that's on my business today rather than in my business today, that's what's going to make the difference. And that's where we need the most help, because we're, as an industry,
It's 95 mile an hour every day, isn't it?
it's faster than that. It's crazy at the moment, and people just don't stop because they're so concerned and so worried. And I think part of that is the political side of things, to be very honest with you, and another part is, you know, for me, a massive decompress has been binning social media for me personally, and then I get involved for the campaign, but everything else is just, I'm not interested. And trying to just focus on what's important. I spent Friday night doing a stupid little challenge for my 16-year-old son, setting them a thing if they could do it, and we just laughed for 2.5 hours. And I thought, wow, that's what life's about.
Do you know what I did about 4 weeks ago? My mum and her partner came over to the house for dinner, and we had a game of Monopoly with kids.
Brilliant.
My girlfriend's kids at 10 and 6, they've studied this game. We never did that. And they're watching the board going round, and they know where's the expensive properties, and they're trying to put you off buying it. And they want to buy it because they know that if you drop on it, the rent's going to be dearer. And it was like, this didn't happen when we were kids, did it? And you know, it's like, so you're right. That hour and a half that we did play Monopoly, because I'm like, really? We're just there, a nice bottle of wine, we're just chilling, Monopoly. It was fantastic.
Live in the moment, I think,
Two
is the
hours.
buzz phrase just now, isn't it?
We had the Liverpool version, and there was no money in it. When you opened the box, so it was,
I was going to go one further. The
During
Scottish
the war.
version has,
The Scottish version's got all the money, it's just in people's pockets.
there we go. The Scottish version's got the football team, so there's one that I never like to buy if I'm near it. I just sort of skip past it. But we'll get on from that.
Keep away from that green and white thing. So we'll finish off some quick fire questions so our viewers can get a little bit more of a personality. It's not just this guy who's coming in and banging on about it. We want to make sure that everybody has a different opinion in terms of as a person, because sometimes everybody sees you just this hard campaigner, and you know, if we got another maybe 6 or 7 like you doing it, we'd probably get somewhere. This whole industry would be a bit different.
Well, we have now. That's the thing. We have got them. I'm just making sure they get a seat in the room.
And
That's
I
all
know
I'm
when
doing.
I've spoke to you and Colette, and I'm not going to go on about it, but I do know that you speak to the other side when you have to speak to salon owners who are close to, you know, depression, you know, not nice things in their life, but things that they've loved doing, going into that shop, opening up, cutting hair, colouring hair, and now they're at a point where some of them are like having darker thoughts because of business, and I know that plays a toll on both you and Colette when you hear those stories.
I just say to anybody that we're asking to join in the room, just stop and think about those things. Just have a moment to think about how challenging it is for some people, how difficult it is, and just see another point of view. Give it a shout. I think those are the things that are important. Put your ego aside, right? Sit down and really understand somebody. Don't just sit there and take your 100 grand plus wage, and
Which shop's that?
well, I'm not going to say, but
Where'd they
there
get
are
one of
some
those?
out there. There are some out
Yep.
there, and don't
He's sat in there.
actually understand what individual salon owners are going through. You know, when they send you an email or send one back saying, "Go on, give me a call," and I'll talk you through it, because most people don't understand it.
There's education that I'd say to salon owners sometimes when you're taking young staff on, educate them about the business as well, because they look at you. I mean, I know salon owners and you know, who'll not go to a salon if they've bought a new car. They don't take it to the shop. They just, because staff feel that you're doing really well, and they don't realise all the stuff that they have to go through. So again, but that's a communication thing, educating them.
Yeah, I
telling
mean,
them.
that's a big part of what we're doing. We're doing our own podcast internally where different individuals are going to get interviewed, and a big part of that is the campaigning and finances and so on and so on. You know, those are good things.
Will you get me on as a guest on your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you'll come, but
Oh, well, definitely.
Billy Big Time over there.
Right, we'll finish off with some quick fire questions for you, Tobes.
Go for it. Yep.
Night in or night out?
In.
What's your favourite food?
I do like a steak and chips.
Who's your favourite clothes designer?
I'm probably something from cycling. I'm not like that.
Okay. What's your favourite all-time movie?
Oh, Back to the Future. The
Oh,
original.
yes,
The
yes.
original.
Agreed.
The best.
This one's a tough one, and I do need it.
Go on.
Describe you in one word.
Okay. Describe me in one word.
That's four,
That's
but
tough.
let's go
No,
for
we
it.
haven't done it yet. I've got to think of the word. It's going to take me a little while. Driven.
David, one word.
About me?
Yeah, just describe yourself in one word.
Cantankerous.
Barry.
Complicated.
Okay. Magnificent. Toby Dicker from the Chapel, thank you very much for being on Final Cut.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much for having me,
Brilliant.
guys.
Good job.